So this is one of the few times where I've had to purposely put a thumbnail that's not just me staring into the camera on here for people to preemptively know what I'm talking about. For those who live under a rock, we're having this stupid election tomorrow, and it's really insane because even though it's supposed to be tomorrow, we still might not know who actually wins for multiple days, depending on which states are won or which states are able to finish counting. Um, I just wanted this to serve as something of what's a good way of saying, like an epilogue, where you just restate what's occurred and then kind of give your opinion on the whole situation. So back in early, maybe like late 2018, early 2019, I was very optimistic about this race because there was a chance to get a candidate that was worth the damn to run against Trump, whether that was Sanders or at the time I thought Warren. And really looking back at it, because I did vote in the Democratic primary for Sanders, I would have been comfortable with, so far as voting for, probably that entire Democratic field except for four or five people. Um, so that includes Buddha Trash, who's been like making the rounds on TV for the last couple of weeks and going viral because he, I guess, looks competent while being on Fox News, even though Tulsi did the same thing and they ignored her. Um, he was one of the ones I wouldn't support under any circumstances because I see him as a complete phony. Same thing with Bloomberg, aka Republican light. Um, Biden, and also the other part about Bloomberg is that a lot of people forget this. Out of that whole Democratic field, which had over 20 people in at one point, there were only two candidates who had sexual assault allegations: Biden and Bloomberg. So the Democrats literally said, we're going to ignore that this might come back to bite us later. Let's just anoint this person and all endorse him and run behind. And I just hate that a lot of people will forget the fact that the primary was, what's a good way of saying it, interfered with, not as in someone changed the votes, but a lot of conservative analysts, when they're discussing why Sanders lost, they always like to leave out the part where Obama called Klobuchar. What was I had a nickname for her, but the senator from Minnesota, he called her and Buddha Trash, and within, I believe it was 48 hours of Super Tuesday, both of them dropped out. And again, those are those little coordinated things that people leave out because they don't want to believe when individuals say there was not a fair fight or there were different things working against them. They want to tell you that you're crazy. But again, those news stories are still there. Those articles are still there. So anyone who wants to have what I just said verified can go look it up. But yeah, after that happened, we had the, the the ridiculousness that was. I always call it Stupid Tuesday because it's always my least favorite candidates that win on Super Tuesday. Uh, and that's when Biden got this lead that just kept getting bigger and bigger, and it basically turned into a repeat of 2016, except even worse because in the case of that, there was some level of fighting as far as between Sanders and Clinton around April, later into the election cycle, whereas I believe it was early April when Sanders dropped out. Multiple states still hadn't voted. And I was just really disgusted by the whole spectacle because I knew that, especially after Jimmy Dore had started doing his, various videos in the election, it was going to be just like last time. Sanders loses to some Democrat that had a bunch of other ones helping them in the background. And then instead of calling that out or, making it some kind of public spectacle, uh, they decide to have him go around and campaign for these people. And then, sure enough, because Jimmy did another video on this, a lot of the people who took issue with Sanders during the primary, once he started supporting either Clinton or Biden, oh my God, you guys need to listen to him. What a brilliant politician. Look at the case he's making. And it was just a complete retread. It was like stepping into a time machine and going back 4 years. Uh, and sure enough, anytime you critiqued Biden during the primary, it was all right. But after the general election, the same group of people, whether it was TYT or any of those other supposed left wing groups, all decided to start, I guess, pretending that the issues that he had that they spoke about during the primary were non existent. You can go look at their older videos. They would talk about him having cognitive decline, uh, different stuff with the crime bill. There were plenty of things they would go after him for not being tough enough on the environment because he wouldn't support the Green New Deal. And it was so sad to watch all of these critiques that I think were valid um, just get thrown out the window because he's part of the same anti-Trump team as they are apparently. And neither one of them. And I lean toward Biden pulling it out, but that's mainly because of polling. Which, by the way, you have people who have been trying to conflate the polling from this cycle with that of 4 years ago, and it really is not the same thing because he has a gap that he's established between the two of them that's much larger. And also the same group of people, if it was reversed and Trump was in the lead, they would be saying that the polls were accurate and he was going to win every state. So really, a lot of times when people doubt polls, it's because it reflects a result they don't like, or it's an indicator of something that might happen that they don't want to see happen. Even though I think a lot of people are saying that know in their heart that those polls aren't entirely wildly off from what we're going to get. That's why Trump's doing 5 rallies today. He knows he doesn't have this in the bag. But yeah, going back to the general election thing, um, there was another video that was made. I forget by who, but they were talking about how this is the scam of the DNC, where you get these candidates you like in the primary, and they do little things to mess them up, so that when they put the person they want, I guess, in the position of the general election nominee, you're left with either voting for that person or being told about how if you don't vote for them, you're going to get this other person who's so much worse. Um, and if I don't believe in the capabilities of either the incumbent or the person who is in office presently or the person who's challenging them, I'm not going to support either one. You can dislike both. And, it's really insane how they've turned voting into this absurd entitlement. Like, think of how insane it would be if I was running for the House or the Senate and I said, if you don't support me, you're going to get this other person who is so much worse. And, that's the reason you have to support. I'm not going to tell you about what I'm going to do. Um, why what I believe in is actually beneficial to the US. It's nothing. They try to get you scared of what the other person will do. So you'll support some lackluster individual you don't really care about. And that happens even as early as the primary because they tell you that the candidate that you like is too right wing or too left wing to get elected, but that this other person that they like, is so much more magical in their abilities to woo voters on a national scale or national level. God, it is 2016 Redux. Like I really feel like someone should make Back to the Future a live action TV show at this point where like every episode is a different person getting sent to some uh, different like past event. Hold on a second. Hello? I'm kind of in the middle of something. Anyways, I'm in the middle of some interrupting calls. Okay, Brand says exactly. They always come with that same rhetoric. Yeah, I guarantee you can play a speech of Clinton from 4 years ago and a speech from Biden today, and it's the same old crap. Uh, oh, I was wrong about certain things I did in the past, but I've come around um, to this new decision. Like, it drives me bonkers. Fox had a thing during the last election cycle where they played these different clips of Hillary where she would say, I'm opposed to same sex marriage. And then 10 years or 4 years later, she would say she supports it. Like, they're playing a clip of her in the Senate. And then after she came out for 2013, and it was just this constant thing of her flipping her position to try and get enough people to support her for her little goofy presidential campaign. But again, they don't actually talk about what they want to do to really change anything. A lot of people forget the U.S. Bombed 7 countries and has been bombing them for at least the last 5 years since before Trump took over. And very seldom do you actually see the candidates ask, what are you going to do about Syria, Libya, Yemen, Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Somalia? No one bothers. And again, these conflicts a lot of times don't get estimated in their importance because they're not happening here. But that's literally billions of dollars that's being spent on things that will never benefit Americans. Think how insane this is. You'll get told that they can't afford to lower the cost of school or make it free, which for a lot of people is what 10. It's like somewhere thousands of dollars in the 10,000s, but they can spend literally over 600 billion on 7 different wars every year. No, they have all kind of statements that she made and just kept flipping back and forth. It was great. Somebody went on C-SPAN and had a field day. But again, those are just the little things that don't get mentioned. There are a lot of issues that are not being talked about, and that's another thing that happens during these presidential elections, where when they get, especially during the general, all they do is either talk about the economy or social issues. So, like abortion and same-sex marriage and legalization of different drugs. And foreign policy gets completely left out, even though it's the reason why we're $600 billion less every damn year. And a big part of why we're always going to be in debt, why we've been in debt for literally the entire time the US has been a country for over 100 years. And it's just another one of those things that gets swept under the rug. Not because it's impossible for these people to address it, but due to the fact that they know they can get away with not talking about it. Just like with education. I guarantee you, you haven't seen Biden talk about education anywhere near as much as the virus or Trump. They both just throw that issue to the side. As we've had over $1 trillion in student loan debt, neither one of them discusses that. No one cares. An issue that affects thousands, and that's really what pisses me off so much about ignoring that issue. You have people who get told from the time they're in high school, you have to go to college if you're going to get a good job, if you're going to get a real job. And then what happens when they go to college? If they go to a community one and they work their behind off for a year or two and then go to some university, now suddenly they're slapped with this enormous bill for this damn school to give them a piece of paper that still doesn't guarantee them a position. So now not only do you have to play Russian roulette with whether spending these thousands of dollars that a lot of times people don't even own is worth it, but you also have to hope and pray that this piece of paper is going to salvage you. I know degrees aren't shaped like that, but you get my point. And then after you getting all that debt from trying to get this piece of paper that everybody told you you needed, see, it's your fault. You shouldn't have spent all that on trying to get a degree. You're dumb. You shouldn't have done that. Again, education, I bring it up because it's another issue that affects a lot of people that I don't see any of like either of these candidates actually discussing in the slightest. Like you would think that 1.5 trillion student loan debt that doesn't even exist. But again, that's because everyone is like the only time you see them talk about schools is when they're discussing if kids should be allowed to like be around each other during the virus, but not actually fixing any issues that one might have with the education system, which again, a lot of it, especially after high school, is tied almost exclusively to its affordability. Because if all these people are taking out debts and loans and grants to go, it clearly isn't something people can usually tolerate. But I had the same situation happen, except I got out before racking up debt. So at least I don't have to watch people try to blame me for, you know, trying to get a piece of paper that they kept what was it what's it called, Red Scare, where they were accused everybody being a communist. They try to Red Scare you into going to school. If you don't go here, then you'll be sweeping crap. If you don't go here, to this day, I still it's been over 2 years. I still have people who try to Red Scare me into going back. And I say the same thing. If I could afford it, I would. Yeah, when you don't have support from your elders or people who claim that they're so concerned about this crap, I don't know who else you can turn to besides the government. And that's really what is disturbing to me, that, you know, you're more likely to get assistance for popping out a kid you knew you couldn't afford than you would be if if you tried to go to school and do what people tell you to do, the supposed right thing that they yammer on about each year. But yeah, you won't see Trump or Biden talk about how the U.S. Educational system is a scam, because that'll be a little inconvenient. And I think a lot of people just don't care unless it affects them, which really should tell you how disturbing this stuff is. Because I had a guy who came on one of my streams about not a week ago, about maybe 3 weeks ago, um, and I just mentioned COVID in passing, just briefly touched on how this one politician had a position I didn't like. And he was like, "You believe in this fake virus? I thought you were smart." And I'm like, "Yeah, people who get to sit at their house, there are so many denials of reality that happen during politics. So I don't need to prove that 200,000 people have died from this disease. But the fact that that many people, like, just think about how big that number is. Remember, 9/11 wasn't even through. I'm not trying to downplay it, but it was less than 3,000. This is literally over 10 times that number. And you have people who actually log onto their computers every day to claim that this is not that bad or not actually happening. And who the hell wants to talk to someone like that? To where you can see literally hundreds of thousands of people die, and you're gonna go, "Oh no, they're just all playing dead, like it's a movie." So I was glad to see that person go, because I don't need to be involved with the Alex Jones, what's a good way of saying it? The various Alex Jones that are on YouTube in the comment section of these different videos. Yeah, this website is so ridiculous. just with the people that are on here, the things that they say, I really lose a lot of my patience and tolerance for some of their BS. Because again, it's like certain stuff, and just to briefly segue into something else, um, a lot of what I've noticed is that these people don't want to concede things that can be proven, so they can peddle their position, and that transfers not even just in politics, but just everything else. Um, I could give the example of how when I talked about the chick stuff, I was accused of like, because I mentioned I've approached, like 80, 90 plus broads, and I had somebody say, uh, all the ones you spoke to, or you must be speaking the ones who are above your league. And I was laughing because they're basically inferring that all of these dozens of chicks are all supermodels and are all, despite me never showing what any of them look like. But again, it's another one of those things where the person can't prove their position, so they have to make assumptions. This was repeated with Triple L, where I discussed the school thing, and her thing to go to was to say, "Oh well, you must have negotiated in the wrong way with these various adults that you thought were going to assist you." It's like, well, you're trying to blame me for how someone else decided to use their money, and you weren't there, so how would you know what way in which I spoke to these people? Again, it's just a thing that gets, and I'm mentioning those because it's not just politics. When you have an individual who doesn't want to believe something, they will do whatever mental ninjutsu or gymnastics they can to downplay or mitigate the reality of the situation. And it's really disturbing because I try to, when Sanders was polling behind Biden, not once did I go, oh, that's just a poll. It doesn't mean anything. I believed it, and that's why a lot of us were donating. And if you lived in the respective states in which he performed poorly, you were knocking on doors. A lot of his supporters actually, I think, gave more effort than he did, ironically enough. But my point is, when they showed some level of proof that he wasn't going to make it or pull out, I didn't go, well, I don't like the way this looks, so I'm going to pretend it's not actually a possibility or the most likely thing to happen. Because I know damn well that if it was reversed and they had Sanders leading Biden, I would have said, oh, yeah, this is true. This is great. Lean back on this, I'll start to hurt my behind. And I've looked at a lot of the post-election ideas that have been like swirling around. I heard that apparently at one point, someone on TYT, I don't know if it was Cenk or not, said they want to have Biden be primaried in 2024. I'm like, so you want us to just vote for this clown who you know is so bad that you're already talking about primarying them before they even get elected? Because I remember his plans for Clinton, where he was talking about how on inauguration day, people protest and get in the streets and whatnot. Uh, that was something that, as much as it was antagonistic to I guess that to the proposed Clinton administration, it still wasn't a direct, "Hey, to hell with you," as what he proposed for Biden. Yeah, it just seems like it never changes. Like every election for from now until the end of time is going to be some candidate I don't even like just being the nominee. Biden has really been I think all of his years of practicing Catholicism have paid off because he has been given one of the easiest, most uh hand holding primary general election campaigns I've ever seen. Like you're running against someone who at the time they're in office gets hit months before the election gets hit with this pandemic, and they are commonly digging themselves in a hole because of like public statements that they make. They are criticized like just everything you can think of to make it easy for Biden to win. Which I don't. Again, I still don't entirely believe it's going to be the case. But again, I kind of just in the middle on who I think is going to win. I lead more toward him, but everything that you could think could lead to him pulling this off, it's all been because of other. Like he's such a reactionary character. It's really amusing. And again, if he's able to pull it off, it will almost entirely be because people are sick of Trump. Which again, I would feel pretty bad if that was the main reason or only reason someone voted for me. Because I go in the comment section of different videos. Yeah, well, at least he's not as bad as Trump. At least he's not as bad as Trump. At least he's not as bad as Trump. I want to make that into a rap song. At least he's not as bad as Trump. You gotta vote for Biden and get off your rump. They just spam the same crap over and over. They can't tell me what he's actually going to do. Just know that he's not the other person and support him. And people don't have a problem with this. He's going to get one of the highest voting totals for any candidate in the entire history of the U.S. Tomorrow or in the next couple of days. And that voting total is not going towards someone who people believe in and think is going to change all of the screwed up things in the U.S. It's just more of the same old stuff, except it's a different face with the same positions. It's funny to watch people. I think when they don't like a candidate, they kind of try to pretend as if everything they say isn't true. But Trump was correct about how a lot of the people who were, crying and moaning about his immigration policy, for example, uh, were completely wordless and speechless and had nothing to say when, minus the family separation part, much of the same detaining policy was a holdover from the Obama administration. Like I said, Biden was VP during a tenure that deported more illegal immigrants than any president in US history. And yet he's going to end up getting some really big portion of the, of the votes and for that group. And I just, people have really, they don't care. They don't care to research things. They don't care to show these individuals that you can't just put anyone up in front of me and I'm going to support them. It's like it completely just passes them by. They're like, whatever. Like I said, the one good thing is that this election will be over by the end of this week. I do think it's really goofy that they won't count all the votes in one day. That's stupid to me because everybody knows that election day is supposed to be a big deal because all the votes are counted. So if you don't count all of them, then you run the risk of not telling us who it actually is. So it kind of just seems like tomorrow isn't even really the end. It's just sort of a part one of a several day or 3-4 part conclusion, depending on how many days it takes for them to certify a winner. It just gets lamer and lamer. Like, how do you screw? You know what? This isn't even the first time during this cycle that happened where they just screwed up counting the end result. Because if you remember, during the Democratic Iowa primary, people were waiting with bated breath. Oh, I want to see who wins! Yay, yay, yay! And it was they had some kind of screwed up thing with the voting app where we didn't find out for like a whole day or 2 days. It was really weird. Democrats are the only ones who do all these like behind the scenes shenanigans and oh my god. Well, since we're not really having much fanfare or commentary, I guess I can wrap this up. I was hoping we would, discuss this as some kind of group, but I guess people are busy or out doing things. I'm gonna go for 10 more minutes and I'll wrap it up. That'd be funny if like somebody just then shows up. It's like, hey, I'm sorry I missed the first half hour, but I've now decided to appear. Oh, someone that I used to watch actually put up a video that was similar to something I talked about. Must be 3 or 4 months ago. And when I saw that my video didn't even have 100 views, but that their video, which was about the same topic, was able to get, I think it was 8,000. I just rolled my eyes. I swear, this website. I'm really not surprised I abandoned hope on growing on here because people just it's like you can't do anything on here to improve like viewer turnout. Like people can discuss the same thing as you and they'll get even more views because reasons. Or hell, they can. There's a guy on here who has 4 million views, not 4 million views, but subscribers, and all he does is take a movie and spend most of the video summarizing it and then tell you what the total number of something in it is, which anybody could do if they have a timer. And I was like just sitting there watching that perplexed because for a long time I was told about how you need to do this, you need to get this better camera, and you need to get this. But a lot of these people who are able to pull this stuff off, I don't really see doing anything creative or that's so earth-shatteringly groundbreaking. Like hell, a lot of those bigger, even with the bigger gaming channels, all they do is play a video game. I wouldn't say that many of them are comedic or funny or bring some level of insight or have some commentary I desperately need to hear. So I said this site is like being in the twilight zone. You'll end up driving yourself crazy the more you try to do things on here. Yeah, my optimism for YouTube is about as shot as my optimism for this election. They go hand in hand. They drive me nuts. That's why I can't a lot of those edited videos I do. If I got more views, I probably would do it more often because I would say, oh well, this is the thing people want to see. But it's like if all you're gonna get is under 100 views, but you putting in like actual hours of effort to do the video, I don't really see the point. Like I'll still do them, but they just won't be as often. I changed the stream's name to Crappy Election and on Stagnant Channel. I just find it to be a really sad thing and very ridiculous, by the way. Yeah, they don't really show up at all that often with a lot of these. It's crazy too because it's like you can do a stream a day or two removed from another one, and people will show up. And then if you don't do it on that same day or at a like this is around the same time I did one on Saturday. Maybe the notification button got screwed up. All kind of weird stuff happens on this website. Like that one day that someone at Google messed up and then all the servers went down and people were freaking out because they couldn't watch YouTube for like an hour. I did a video on it called "The Day YouTube Died." Yeah, this might be the first election ever where it actually might take them several days to tell us who won, which is really buffoonish. You keep getting told about all this sophisticated technology and how things are improving, and then they're so primitive they can't even count all the votes in one night with like all the thousands of people that are counting votes. They can't do that. Like I said, it's all this big just hocus and pocus. Like they have the delusion of actually having things improved. It has been funny to watch some of the internet reaction. Like I remember when the first debate happened, uh, people went to I believe it was the first one between Obama and Romney from 2012, and the comment section were like, "Wow, what an amazing difference!" Like, uh, yeah, that's kind of how they almost always are. Moderator asks the candidates the questions, and then they respond back, suggesting what they would like to see done, even if they're full of crap when they make their claim. They still give an answer usually. But it was funny because that's how you know a lot of people don't pay attention to this stuff at all. Like that's the first time they're seeing those debates. Because I remember uh, when those occurred, I was lined up with one of my relatives to watch them. He was like, "Oh my God, let's go look at this." And that's why I find this stuff as aggravating as it is. I find it to be sometimes more aggravating than it even is. Like whenever they say this candidate said this about the other one. It just feels like it's like a cartoon at this point because no one's actually talking about improving anything besides COVID. Like that's the only issue affecting anybody. Like before COVID, we lived in Disneyland when that was anything but the case. But again, it's part of the delusion where they want you to believe if you just defeat Trump or if he loses or whatever the hell, things will all go back to being good when they weren't good even before he got there. And yeah, I mentioned a bunch of different issues that the U.S. has. So I'll be wrapping this up. Have a good rest of your day, and hopefully they can count all the votes tomorrow. If not, we'll just have to wait out a few more days. But it's been a goofy election cycle. Where both of the candidates, in my opinion, are clowns, and it just sucks that the only reason one is supported is because the other one is being purported as like the new devil or Hitler or whatever. It's really ridiculous, but whatever. They couldn't trick me, and that's all that matters.